All right, so let me take you back to a moment you've definitely lived, or I'm going to make a bold assumption and assume you've lived. See, you're in a conversation. Maybe it's Thanksgiving dinner, maybe it's a work meeting, maybe it's just a random Tuesday with your spouse, friends, or maybe a family member. And you have the facts, okay? You've got receipts and you lay out your case like a prosecutor with a slam dunk conviction. And somehow they dig in harder. And you walk away replaying the conversation in your head, saying something to the effect of, like, how can they not see this? I literally showed them the data. See, here's the thing nobody tells you. You didn't lose that argument because your logic was weak. You lost because you were playing the wrong game entirely. Hi, I'm Alan Stafford, and I've spent 30 years in marketing learning how to change people's minds for a living. And today, I'm going to show you why everything you think you know about winning arguments is backwards. And more importantly, I'm going to give you something that actually works. Here's what's really happening in that argument or conversation you're having. You see, when you challenge someone's beliefs, their brain doesn't process it as a debate, okay? It processes it as a threat. And I'm talking about the same neural pathway that activates when a bear walks into your campsite, assuming one does. See, this is your amygdala. It's your brain's alarm system. And the moment someone feels like their worldview is under attack, this little almond-shaped region floods their system with stress hormones. Their heart rate goes up, their breathing gets shallow, and here's the cruel part. You see, blood flow decreases to their prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for logic and reason. So when you're presenting your beautifully constructed argument, their logical brain is literally going offline. Your uncle or whoever you're having this conversation with isn't being stubborn because he's stupid. His brain is in survival mode, and you can't reason with a brain that thinks it's fighting for its life. But here's where it gets really interesting. See, the better your argument is, the more threatening it feels. Think about that for a second. The more evidence you pile on, the more their defenses go up. You're not convincing them, you're cornering them. And I learned this the hard way about, let's say, 15 years ago. I was in a meeting with a client and I had data showing their marketing campaign was underperforming. Charts, graphs, the whole 9 yards. I walked out of that meeting thinking I'd crushed it. I showed them exactly what they needed to see. Well, 3 weeks later, they fired my agency. It took me years to understand what actually happened. See, I didn't change their mind. I made them feel attacked. And people, well, they don't hire agencies that make them feel stupid. Now, let me make this even more uncomfortable. Okay? There's a phenomenon researchers call the backfire effect, and it's going to change how you think about persuasion. Here's what it means. When you present someone with facts that contradict their beliefs, those facts can actually strengthen their original position. Let me say that again. When you present someone with facts that contradict their beliefs, those facts can actually strengthen their original position. In other words, evidence against their beliefs makes them believe it even more. Why? Well, heck, I'm glad you asked me. Because beliefs aren't just ideas floating in a vacuum, they're tied to identity. So when you attack someone's belief about politics or parenting or whether pineapple belongs on pizza, you're not just challenging an opinion, you're challenging who they are. And here's the kicker. The more publicly someone has committed to a position, the harder they'll defend it. And psychologists call this consistency bias. See, we have a deep need to appear consistent, even when we're wrong. So every time you've destroyed someone in an argument, every time you've made them look foolish in front of others, you probably just cemented their position for the next decade. Which brings us to the uncomfortable question. If winning arguments doesn't change minds, then what does? All right, here's where we turn this around. See, I'm going to give you a framework I call the pause protocol. This isn't about being soft or avoiding conflict. It's about being strategic. See, you can't reason with a brain in threat mode. So first, you have to get them out of threat mode. We'll start with P. P is for pause before responding. When someone says something that makes you want to fire back immediately, that's your amygdala talking, not your rational brain. See, the 3-second rule, before you respond to anything heated, take 3 seconds. Just breathe. That tiny gap lets your own stress response basically settle down. And here's a bonus. Silence makes people uncomfortable. They'll often start walking back their position on their own. See, silence, it's not losing, it's actually very tactical. Next is A. A is for acknowledge their position. I mean, this isn't an agreement, it's acknowledgement. There's a massive difference between the two. I'm gonna give you some examples, some example phrases you can use. You can say something like, I can see why you'd think that, or that makes sense given what you've experienced, and I get where you're coming from. See, these phrases, they're magic. They tell the other person's brain, hey, you're not under attack, And that alone could cut defensiveness in half. You're not surrendering your position. What you're doing is you're opening a door. And U is for understand before arguing. This is where most people blow it, okay? They're so eager to make their point that they never actually understand what they're arguing against. Ask genuine questions. And I mean genuine, not gotcha questions disguised as curiosity. Here's some examples that you might want to say or use. Help me understand what led you to that conclusion, or what's been your experience with this, or what would you change, or what would change your mind? See that last one, what would change your mind? That's pretty powerful. See, if they can't answer it, they might realize their position isn't as solid as they thought. And you didn't have to tell them that. See, they discovered it all on their own. Curiosity disarms, interrogation escalates. Remember that. And S is for seek shared ground. Here's a secret from 30 years of persuasion. People who disagree often share the same underlying values. They just prioritize them differently. Someone who wants strict immigration policy and someone who wants open borders might both value safety and fairness. They just weigh them differently. So find that shared value. Say something like, hey, it sounds like we both want what's best for working families, right? Or we're both trying to figure out what's fair here. See, now you're not opponents anymore. You're two people with a shared goal, trying to figure out the best path forward. So you're not abandoning your point. You're finding a door that isn't barricaded. And finally, E is for express without attacking. See, when you share your perspective, frame it as your perspective, not a universal truth. See, you've perhaps heard this before, I statements. They do sound soft, but they actually work. Say something like, I've come to see it differently because, then fill in the blank, or in my experience, again, fill in the blank, or the way I've been thinking about it, and then fill in the blank. See, don't look at this as weakness because it's no. This is giving them room to reconsider without losing face. And that's everything. See, people change their minds. They just won't do it while you're watching and taking credit. Look, I know this is a lot to remember in the heat of the moment, okay? So let me give you just one thing to try. So next time you're in a disagreement, don't counter. Ask one genuine question instead. Just one. See what happens when you stop trying to win and start trying to understand. You might be surprised. See, the conversation might actually go somewhere that you didn't think it was going to go. Or here's the thing nobody talks about. You might learn something that changes your mind. And that's not losing, my friend. That's actually intellectually growing. Either way, you've upgraded the conversation from a battle into something that might actually matter. Hey, if you want to keep this framework handy, I've put together a pause protocol pocket card. That's a mouthful that you can download for free. I got the link in the description below. And if this helps you think sharper today, hit subscribe. I do a deep dive on topics that keep you thinking sharper every week. Hey, I'm Alan Stafford. I want to thank you for thinking with me, and thanks for watching.